G'day and welcome to Kenty Blitz, your daily hit of NRL news. Kenty, we've got a different show today. I'm going to ask you to take your tinfoil hat off for a little bit and put your thinking cap on. And we're going to talk about top 4, top 8 and get some predictions from you.
Yeah, look, I think it's worth having a look at too, Woz. It's we're at that stage of the season where teams, you can really see them fine-tuning for the finals. I think the fan interest has picked up a lot. People are starting to assess where they think teams are going to finish. And, it's an interesting look at it, actually, because some of the things the ideas you've already, preconceived ideas we've all got, I don't think you've really thought them through with what's left in the 3 weeks that are remaining in the competition. So.
And, of course, coming in the top 4 is important because you get that second chance, right? Yeah,
that's the big one, isn't it, at the moment? So the top 4 sits there at the moment. We've got the Warriors sitting in 4th spot. So the interesting thing about that is I think there's a lot of focus on the top 4 and how that eventuates. What I find interesting is if you look at the market, the Warriors are $2.80 on PointsBet to make the top 4. They've got Canterbury in front of them to make top 4. They're going to make that. They're $1.02. They'll probably finish 3rd. But there is a weight of money for the Penrith Panthers to finish 4th and take their spot. What I find interesting, though, is the Warriors have a fairly easy draw home. Like they've got, let me just go through
Titans, Paramanly.
Titans, Paramanly. Now, you look at that and you would think they probably beat all 3 teams. Now, the Warriors halfway through the season, I would say easily account for all 3 teams. Recent weeks, though, there's a concern about them, isn't there? And I think that's what obviously the bookies are reacting to. But that said, I think other than the Manly game, like Parramatta were woeful last weekend. The Titans were even worse. So they're probably the 2 worst performances of the weekend, last weekend, Parramatta and the Titans. Mind you, the Warriors are probably 3rd worst. So, that's where we're at. But I do think that the Warriors, look, they still should get home. The only thing is what happens Manly last game. We're expecting that to be Daly Cherry Evans' last game for the Sea Eagles.
At Manly too.
At Manly. I don't think they'll drop him, but that will be a very unusual game.
Is that a chance to drop him?
There's a push to drop him. God. So there's a push. Now, I think it lacks class if they do, to be honest. Now, there is a push within certain elements around the club. I wouldn't say within the club, but around the club to drop him to, a little bit like Jason Ryles did with Dylan Brown. Okay, that's just blood guys next year. But the fact is, Daly Cherry Evans, I think what he's given that club, he deserves to go out on his own merits. Whether it's, look, his form has been off a little bit recently, but I do think that he deserves to go out.
I think that'd be a stain on Manly to do that.
I agree with you. It would be, like I said, it would lack class to drop Daly Cherry Evans. It would almost be a spiteful gesture. That said, though, there is a little bit of bad blood just given how the whole season's eventuated, and I think now that we're looking back on Manly's season essentially being over, they're long odds to make the finals. That the way I think he's blotted his copybook in the way he's handled this, Cherry Evans. I think he thought he was doing the right thing, the way he handled it at the beginning. But the impact it's had on the club, they have struggled since then, and it's not going to be looked upon in a good light, I don't think.
I guess the issue is, what is he supposed to do? Because everybody keeps asking him what he's going to do. And so he has to make a decision.
But he told a half-truth, was. He told the club he was leaving, but by not disclosing where he's going and basically giving full transparency, sometimes with these things, it's the partial, I wouldn't say it's a lie, but the partial truth when there's more that people need to know or want to know to feel satisfied. There's no closure. And that's the problem. If he'd come out and he'd said nothing, and I thought he handled it well by telling Manly early on, but by not disclosing where he's going, it just allowed it to fester and fester and fester. And that's the issue. I think in hindsight, I think Manly, they don't know, but technically they don't know anyway.
Let's pull this back a bit, Kenty. Do you remember at the end of last year, and the chat was at the start of this year, the end of last year, the talk was that DC asked for a release to go to the Titans. Dolphins, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, not the Titans, the Dolphins. Where do you think the Dolphins would be now with DCE? Would they be further up?
I think the way Katoa's played this year, he's been probably their best player. He's been one of the form halfbacks of the competition. you could argue that they wouldn't be going as well, to be honest. I know they have probably like the 580. He would have fitted in that area there, I imagine. But
where we believe he's going to be playing for the Roosters.
Yeah, look, but the other thing, look, I don't know where it's going to go. I don't want to spend too much time on Daly Cherry Evans.
Yeah.
But the fact is, I think it's had a negative impact on Manly's season this year, and I think the fruits of that are there now to be seen.
Well, the Warriors are on 32 points, right, and they've got 3. No games are easy.
Three very
easy,
winnable games.
Very winnable games. And then Penrith have some harder games, right? Penrith play Canberra, Canterbury. They're on 31 points.
Well, okay, so the Warriors are 1 point ahead. They're 32. Penrith are 31. Now, Warriors win all 3. Clearly, they finish 4th. Penrith have got to hope they lose 1 and then pick up all 3. Canberra at home. Well, it's not really at home. It's at Mudgee this weekend. It's on Friday night at Mudgee. Then they've got Canterbury away at Canterbury, and then they've got the Dragons at home. Now, you'd think, given all things being equal, Penrith have a good chance of getting all 3 and will probably pick up 2 of those 3 games.
Yep.
And I think that's what people are sort of sweating on to finish ahead of the Warriors. Then you've got the Broncos on 30 points, Cronulla on 30 points as well. I don't think either of those sides can push into the top 4 given what's ahead of them. So
I tell you what, the people of Mudgee have picked a great game.
Oh, haven't they?
What a cracker that'll be.
It'll be. They'll be swinging from the rafters.
You been to Mudgee?
Not a lot. Yes, I have though. Yeah, but they reckon it's a great town. I've not really sort of spent too much time there.
And Cronulla?
Well, Cronulla can't get there. Look, Cronulla are what? They're
on 30.
They're on 30.
They do have the bye.
They're 430 to make the top 4. I don't think they can get there, Cronulla. I think what we see out of Cronulla now is what we're going to see out of Cronulla. I just don't think they can make up. They've got to win all 4 games and then hope that the results still go their way. So, no, I don't think they can get there. All
right, let's talk about the minor premiership as the next cab off the rank. Just a question: does the minor premier still get the JJ Gilliton Shield?
No, they don't. No. What happened? The minor premiership does. Yes, the minor premiership gets the Gilliton Shield. The interesting thing about that, it's either going to be we think it's either going to be Canberra or Melbourne, who are sort of piece for the job at the moment. The good news for the NRL is, come the last round, Melbourne play the Broncos on a Thursday in Brisbane, and the Raiders play the Dolphins on Sunday in Brisbane.
So they can bring the shield up
the Gilliton Shield is the most travelled trophy in the NRL because come the end of the season, they're never quite sure. Always, some years they are, but some other years they're never quite sure who's going to win the minor premiership. So it might be in Melbourne because Melbourne are perennially there. So it might be in Melbourne, but then they might have to go up for the Broncos game, or they have to sort of cart it all around the country, depending on who wins. But so the minor premiers get the Gilliton Shield.
What's the background to that? Do you know?
James J. Gilliton, it's named after. He was the original secretary. He was instrumental in the formation of rugby league in the game. He was the original secretary of the New South Wales Rugby League back in 1908. And I think he was like a manager or something on that first Kangaroo Tour, which was whatever year that was.
Same year, maybe?
It could have been the same year. I think it might have been the same year. But anyway, so he was a commanding figure in the game. And look, back then, trophies and competitions, they were all named after officials rather than players. These days you've got the Andrew Johns Cup, the Mal Meninga Cup, the Laurie Daly Cup, whereas back then it was Jersey Flegg, who was a long-time secretary of the game. You had S.G. Ball. So all those competitions are all old officials. James J. Gilliton was an old official. So he's got his name on the trophy. I'm not quite sure when they stopped using it though, but I think 87 or 88 was, I think, the first Winfield Cup with the Arthur
Norm Provan and
Arthur Summons. Anyway, which is a much better trophy. So I think of an iconic trophy. I'd like them actually to go back to that old trophy, just the standard one that they first used. But we'll see about that. We'll start a debate over that another time, I think.
That'll do. Good knowledge on that. Gilliton Shield, by the way. Mate, let's discuss the top 4 and how it could end, because the Raiders are on 40. They play the Penrith Tigers and Dolphins. Penrith, tough game, obviously. Dolphins could be a tough game. Yeah, look,
the Raiders are the P for the job, aren't they? I think that they should get there. They're, $1.65 points bet to win the minor premiership. I think that's about fair. And Melbourne are the only other team. They're $2.20 to win it. Melbourne have got to obviously hope the Raiders get, if they get beat this weekend, the Raiders, and Melbourne are pretty much home, you would imagine. Although they do have a tough run home too. Canterbury, the Roosters, and Brisbane. So there's three top 8 sides at the moment that they've got to play on the run home. The Raiders have a bit of an easy run. After Penrith, they've got the Tigers and the Dolphins. And given the way they've been performing all year, you'd see them do that. The only thing I think, my only real worry with the Raiders is that they're so... I think inexperienced, and they are capable. You go back to that first half performance against Canterbury earlier this season. The second half performance against Canterbury earlier this season, where they just dropped right off and just let the points roll in. Raiders are at their most vulnerable after they've had points scored against them.
Okay,
because they sometimes, not so much this year, but in recent years, they've had this bad habit of one try will quickly become 2, and then suddenly it gets to 3 tries, and suddenly it's just they've struggled to arrest momentum and try and win it back again. And they've done a good job this season of not allowing that to happen. But that's probably my little concern that I've got about the Raiders. But I think that obviously they're in a good spot, and I think they win this week, and I think they win all 3 games at the end.
It's crazy how the draw has ended up. We spoke a bit about it the other day, but the fact that Melbourne played Canterbury, Roosters and Brisbane in the last 3 weeks of the competition is fantastic. Those guys
good
are
for us.
Up. Good for us as watching. Probably not good for Melbourne, who are used to kind of resting those players in that last game, right?
The thing is, though, if Melbourne win this week and who's the third team, Canterbury, lose,
then they can only come second.
So they can only finish second. Now, what that will do, that will allow Craig Bellamy to rest his players in the final 2 games. And I dare say what I think Bellamy will do. He did that last year against the Cowboys. He rested a lot of players in preparation for the finals. He'll either do it one or 2 ways this year. He'll pick a game and he'll say, right, we're resting them. Maybe the first game and then round 26 game and then round 27
back.
Against the Broncos, he'll bring them back as a sharper before the finals.
So maybe rest them against the Roosters, which is not good for our West Tigers fans who are hoping the Roosters get knocked off and they sneak in.
That's true. But he could also rest half and half. Half 1 week against the Roosters and the other half against the Broncos. So, look, we'll just not for us to say what Craig will do, but if they win this week, they're in a very good spot.
Yes.
So they should finish at least top 2 and potentially top minor premiers if the Raiders get rolled.
Let's get your opinion on the top 8. How does that play out? Because we've got the top 4.
Yeah, and there's as much, I suppose, interest in there was in the top 8 as the top 4. Like, I'm not a fan of the top 8 as such, okay? I don't like the system from the point of view that I don't like the fact that you play for 27 rounds, you flog each other for 27 rounds, and then half the competition makes the playoffs. Now, what I'll say out of that, though, is the advantage out of that is, as everybody talks about these days, there is a significant advantage of being top 4, and during the NRL era, which began in 1998, no team has come from outside the top 4 to win the competition. So from that perspective, the competition or the home and away rounds does count for something. You need to get yourself into that top 4, so there's a lot going there. We've seen in recent years teams have made the top 8 with a losing record, which I think is slightly embarrassing, to be honest. That's why I don't like it.
So what do you go to, top 6?
Well, look, that's harder, but the NRL will never do it because it just means less finals games
too
that
much
are
money
played.
involved now, right?
There's too much money involved. There's the crowd, the TV ratings, the money that they get for all that. They will never do it.
What do you think of this idea, top 6, and then this kind of wild card with 7, 8, 9, 10?
Not really. I don't. Look,
I think if you 10th, you shouldn't be in the final.
I think if you, I agree. I don't see when they have wild cards overseas. Okay, and wild cards a system that's mostly borrowed from NFL, and
which have 36 teams, right? That's
36 teams, and also Major League Baseball, 32 teams I think they have, one or the other. Anyway, and also for Major League Baseball. But the reason they have wildcard systems over there is because the teams don't play each other, and sometimes at all.
Yes.
So there'll be teams in the NFL that don't play each other. You'll play teams in your conference, and then you pick your other. It's all random. So what can happen in that situation is you might have for example, one year a conference where of the 4 teams in your conference, 2 of them are out and out gun sides. So if you're sitting there third, you've got a good winning record that you've compiled against the rest of the league. But you've got 2 gun clubs or gun teams in your conference. That allows you to go around them a little bit and get value, like get what you deserve, which is a finals appearance. And normally you're only going to be handicapped because you're in or you would have been handicapped because you're in a strong conference.
Well, what do you think about the idea that the NRL have spoken about when they go to 20 teams of having 2 conferences of 10 and you play each other twice within that? And what do you think about that?
The problem with that, everybody has this idea that the way that works is you have a conference they look at having a Sydney conference. Which is, would look a lot like the old Sydney competition used to be. And then they have the outside Sydney conference.
The rest.
You have Perth and Broncos and Melbourne. Cowboys and Melbourne and all that. Problem with that, one of the problems anyway, is if you had that, it would be, I think, really unfair to the out-of-Sydney teams because they're on a plane every second week, okay? Whereas the Sydney teams, they're just driving across the city. So that they're not doing much travel. And
it might be good for crowds, though. That local kind of derby pretty much every week.
And there is a benefit to that. So that's one of the arguments for it. That the crowd, your local derby, you get back to that old Sydney hostility. And for people, obviously, particularly from Brisbane and Queensland, just to sort of give you, Wayne Bennett used to always be critical of New South Wales people, never got Origin. And it wasn't until he moved to coach St George Illawarra that he finally got the difference between New South Wales and Queensland, that area. And he said, in Queensland, they grow up as a Queensland fan. And the Broncos or Cowboys, that comes second after Queensland. But in New South Wales, that passion's for your club first. And that's the difference. And there are some highly passionate people at some of these clubs. And that's entrenched in you, and I think that's because of that culture. I know football fans who are generational football fans.
Yes.
So who follow teams that their grandfather followed, their parents followed, things like that. They grow up in an area.
Is there any other way than that?
Well, that's true. Well, if you're from Sydney, no.
Yeah.
But that's the way it rolls.
You don't get a choice if you're a young kid. You follow who your parents follow.
Well, that's true. But unless you look, I've got Vonnie Sampson's just had her little boy, and she's a mad Bronco, and Chris is a mad St George Illawarra fan. So. They're trying to figure out.
I think he's already been signed up.
Look, I could tell you they have a running battle with the kids about who they follow. Okay. So they're both trying to sway them. So
very good.
Anyway, but that can't happen. Like occasionally in Sydney, we do allow these sort of crosstown rivalries to get together. So, but I don't know about a 2-conference system. I think if you did that, you'd have to have half a Sydney team, half outside team. I don't know whether it's interchangeable. Look, there's a lot to put into place. If you get it wrong, it's hard to fix. One of the mistakes they would probably make if they did that is they would base the separation on current results today. And as we know, if you've been around long enough, in 20 years it could look completely different.
Very different.
So it's got to be really thought out. It's got merit to it. It just has to be done right.
Very good. Let's talk about, just finish off with this top 8. So we've got Brisbane on 6th, Cronulla on 7th, Roosters on 8. Yeah. The difference is the Roosters are on 28, Dolphins on 26, Manly and the Tigers are on 24. Yeah. We're going to count out Manly and the Tigers.
Yeah, I can't see them.
Put a line through them.
They've got a line through them. I tend to think the top 8 will stay the way it is. I don't think the Dolphins will make it, to be honest. They've got a really tough. They've got Manly. They've got Titans and the Raiders, so they don't have a tough draw. But you give them, they'll probably lose against Raiders. We'd expect that. But the Roosters, they've got Parramatta, Storm, and South.
And they're paying $1.20.
$1.20,
which is probably a telltale sign, right?
Yeah, I think that's the way it goes. Obviously Cronulla and Brisbane are going to get there. So 8 spot's the only one really up for grabs, and it's in the Roosters' hands now. And I think that win was so significant over the Dolphins a few weeks back. So
flogged them.
Yeah,
absolutely flogged.
But we talk about 4-point games. That was a 4-point game. It was 2 for the Roosters and 2 that the Dolphins couldn't get, and that will probably be the difference for those two teams come the end of round 27. So it's a significant one.
Somebody who was very good in that game, Kenty, and we should talk about this because he's come back into form since he's come, is Sam Walker.
Yeah, he's been magnificent.
Why? I mean, he's got an unorthodox style, right? Very different to anybody else out there. Why do you think, where's that come from, and why don't other teams try to copy that? Or players.
What's fascinating about Sam Walker is he was coached by, look, we've spoken about Ben and Shane Walker. So his father's Ben Walker, who played at Manly and Souths and the Broncos. Shane played at, obviously in the NRL at Souths and whatnot as well. The thing about them is they had an idea. They are very analytical thinkers. They like to think laterally, and they look at the game differently. And a lot of coaching in the game these days is all about what a more senior coach has told you, and it's very cookie cutter. This is what we're going to do. And what's fascinating, I think, a lot of times, I know in my job when I would interview people, you'd ask them, they're talking about some strategy they're going to do or whatever, and you'd say to a coach, why are you going to do this? And they'd explain it to you. And I'm saying, well, look, treat me like an idiot. Tell me why. Why are you doing that? What's the thinking behind it? What are you trying to achieve by it?
This is in your old days as a journo.
Yes, yeah. And look, to be fair, it's particularly prevalent among ex-players who go into coaching, particularly even at the rep levels, and they get into coaching and they haven't quite got the background in it. And all they're doing is coaching what another coach told them. And I remember, for example, years ago, Paul Gallen, when he retired, he wanted to get into coaching. He went and saw Craig Fitzgibbon. He said, I want to get into coaching. Fitzy said to him, he said, look, okay, not a problem. Now, he's a club legend at Cronulla. So he's got every right to ask for a start. Fitzy said, mate, okay, look, I'll think about it. He said, look, I'll think about it. He said, I want you to go away. He said, I want you to have 3 or 4 days to think about it. He said, because if you want to coach, he said, I want you to come in and coach. He said, so that means I want you coming in. He said, I want you doing the video and I want you doing all this. He said, I just don't want you to turn up at training, essentially, and talking about or repeating what other coaches have told you.
Interesting. He
said, I want you to learn the art of coaching. And when you learn the art, if you're willing to put in that work to learn all that, to learn not just the theory, but the practicality of it all, why you're doing it, why it works, how you teach these guys to do that. There's a lot more that goes into coaching rather than just guys, they don't say this, but at the start of their conversation or their sentence is, I remember a coach telling me this, so I'm going to say, and then they go, guys, we're going to do this, which is just what a coach has told them 4 or 5 years earlier. So Gallen went away and he thought about it, and I was talking to him about it, and he said to me, mate, I thought about it. I thought, you know what, he's right. I'm not prepared to do that. He wasn't at the time. I think he's had a change of mind now.
It's quite big in media now, though.
Yeah, he is. So, but he wasn't at the time, and he had to think about it, and he really acknowledged Craig Fitzgibbon saying that to him and understood why he said it. And he respected what he said. And I think his decision to say to Fitzy, you know what, you're right, I don't think I'm ready for it quite yet. I think that sort of showed how much he respected that decision. And that's what goes into all that. And that's where you've got to...
Why do you think these footballers want to get into coaching? Is it because they don't have any other options at the end of their career?
Because real work's too hard.
Yeah, right.
Look, I'll be honest with you. Like, a lot of them get in.
You're talking about coaching. You're coaching, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day.
Yeah, and exactly. And a lot of them don't realise that. Right. Okay, some of them are made for it. And they go into it and they handle it quite well. But a lot of them go into it and they're not, to that point, they're not prepared to do the actual work to be a coach. They think they can go in there and because they were an elite player, I'll just tell guys what I learned, what another coach told me. The game changes too quickly to be able to have that mentality because what you're teaching today will not be relevant in 5 years' time. The game will change too quickly for that.
Aside from Ricky Stewart, there's probably not that. I'm just trying to think. There's not that many elite players who are now coaches in the NRL.
Well, Des was. Des played for Australia. Look, Jason Riles he played some rep football.
I think he played for Australia.
Yeah,
he definitely played for New South Wales. But aside from that, I can't really think of too many others.
You got me on the spot now, but I'm sure we'll get told along the way.
Yeah, I know, but we will. But I was just trying to think off the top of my head.
Off the top of my head, it doesn't sort of spring to mind.
And my point was, it's generally the players who probably didn't succeed at that level who have more time to think about coaching and probably absorb more while they're playing.
Well, the other thing is too the other way is you look at players like Cameron Sorrell. Now, he played 100-odd games. He wasn't a hopeless NRL player. Trent Robinson, I think, played 8 NRL games. Bellamy played 100 odd, 140, 150 odd games.
Maybe,
so he played quite a few. But with a lot of those players, some players come through and they're just blessed with athletic gifts. They can run, they're strong, they've got either great vision, great instincts, whatever. A lot of those guys, without sitting down and analysing their careers, they probably got there without those skills and got there because they had the nous. The ability to sit down and understand their game, understand what worked for them, understand what they needed to do to maximise their performance, which translates well to coaching because they've thought the process through. They thought they know what works for them. They know how to maximise those efforts within the game that athletically they can't do. Because the flip side is, how many elite players have we seen who have had 1 or 2 years coaching in the NRL and are just totally not coaches, just have not been able to handle it, have not been able to really come up with anything different, anything consistent within their team, because they are they're the parrot coaches. They're the ones that basically telling the players. I know one old coach, I'm not going to embarrass him, but he was played for Australia, played Origin, the whole lot, and he would sit there and they would train all week, plan for whoever they're playing that weekend, and then he'd sit down and he'd watch Friday night football, and some team would do a couple of little trick plays or whatever. He'd be on the phone to his playmakers or his captains. Yeah. Did you see that? And then all the next day, Saturday, the captain's run on the Saturday, everything they'd worked on that week was thrown out, and they were trying to copy what they'd seen the previous night on television. And look, that's not. But it used to send the players nuts. Okay, but that's not an unusual story in the NRL. There's a lot of ex-players who think because they played the game at the elite level, it certainly gives them a head start. It's going to put them ahead of you and I trying to do the job. Yeah. But that doesn't guarantee success. There's a real, and we're seeing it more and more. There's a real art to actually teaching that and understanding that process. And I don't want to talk about West Tigers, but that's obviously what Benji is facing at the moment. That's what Benji's facing. And to be fair, I think Benji's starting to overcome that a little bit.
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
Appears to.
Yeah, well, he does. So I think Benji's overcoming that. And I think the Penrith players, who he's been at his club now, who he's been particularly loyal to, are really helping him with the coaching. And I think they're helping him understand his own coaching. But I don't think that was there in previous seasons. But I think this year, particularly with Luai getting there, I think Luai's been a tremendous help for Benji. Coruscant's obviously a great help. I think the pair of them together, I can really see those guys sitting there and really helping Benji a lot during the week with game plans and things like that. Yeah, we talked about that too with Adam Reynolds when he first went to Brisbane. He was very good at bringing his coaching. To tell you a story, when Kim Sheens was coaching the Raiders years and years back, he would have this thing every week. He would call in one of his players, Laurie Daly one week, Ricky Stewart the next week, Mal Meninga the next week, Steve Walters, and he'd say, help me with the game plan this week, because he wanted to pick the players' brains and wanted to see how they were thinking and looking at the game. But it also gave them a greater understanding of what it took to what was required to coach. And so a lot of players have come out of that system. Craig Bellamy's come out of that system. Like a lot of the players have come out of that system, working under Sheens, seeing how Sheens applied, how Sheens welcomed in his staff and like his playing staff, and actually had them contribute to the game plan. So he had them thinking like coaches, even as they were players. And so now we've seen that out of that, so like a lot of those players have gone on to coach at whatever level.
You mentioned Reynolds there. What do you think Brisbane are facing now without Reynolds for the next couple of weeks? I mean, Walsh has obviously stepped up.
Walsh stepped up last week. He needs to be consistent with that. The thing about Walsh, he finally sort of gave us what we were looking for last week, okay? He has to understand that he is one of the guys that they need to rely on. He's not the bit of garnish on the side anymore. That, we're going to win the game, and he's going to take us from 8 points in front to 24 points in front. He's got to help them win those games now. That's his role in the team.
Do you think he did that on the weekend? Did he give the fans belief?
I think he gave them hope. Yeah, for sure. And the thing is, though, they're not. The thing about the Broncos, they had an overabundance of halves. They had Ben Hunt, Adam Reynolds. Like and then Billy
Ezra.
Walters was there, Ezra Mam.
Yeah.
They had all these guys there. Now that obviously Reynolds is injured, Mam's injured, not ideal. But when you lose Adam Reynolds and you can replace him
with Ben Hunt,
you're going okay. Okay, so the loss of Reynolds won't be as significant to the Broncos as it would be to another team, given who they're able to replace him with. But I think they would like to get him back. Obviously, they would. But once he gets back, the Broncos are still in a good enough position to do something. I worry a couple of little things I've spoken about before about them, about their defensive attitude and things like that. But the Broncos I don't think aren't as bad off as what you would normally say when you say, oh, look, they've just lost their half and 5/8. One for potentially the season and one won't be back until at least the playoffs. So they're better than that. So they're not too bad.
Kenty, interesting article to finish off today was Andrew Webster in the Australian mentioned that Andrew Abdo was interviewing and Abdo's since come out and said, well, he was approached and he had a few meetings with the directors, but for TEG, which is a sport and entertainment company, and that was behind Valandy's back. Yeah. Which I thought was quite interesting, right? I mean, interesting that Webby would write that, A, and then B, that, you know, it's come out and it's kind of a bit of, I don't know, his right-hand man, Valandy's right-hand man now is almost kind of gone behind his back. And
that'll come as a kick in the guts to Peter Valandy's. But look, I wish Andrew Abdo all the best, to be honest.
You won't be happy to see him go?
No, I probably will be happy.
Yeah, okay. That's
look, that's a bit severe. Okay, look, the fact is, I think Abdo is a tremendous worker. He comes in, but he's not a rugby league man. I think some of the directions the game has taken have not been good for the game. In some respects, I think he oversees all that. I know they've been sniffing around, looking at someone in the general manager of football role at the NRL, which indicates that things just aren't, I don't think, really cherry ripe in there at the moment.
I mean, to Abdo's credit, he was there. He's been there 6 years. He was there during COVID, very difficult time. Saved the game with Valandy's, of course.
Look, he's done a very good job in many areas. He's a hard worker.
Yeah, difficult working in PVL shadow too, right?
Yeah, and Valandy's is a tough boss. But the thing is, too, Warren, you look at things like the last. Well, okay, let's look at the COVID situation. They fluffed around with that until Valandy's came in and said, boom, get this done. This is it, right?
The collective bargaining agreement.
The collective bargaining agreement. Abdo couldn't get a deal done with the Players Association. Valandy's had to come in and get it done.
And he actually said at that time, Valandy said, you know, Abdo's got a bit to learn, and we all do, but I'm here, I'm going to teach him. And I thought that was a little bit of a slap in the face.
And the same with the broadcast deal.
Yeah.
Okay, the last broadcast deal, again, it was when it was renegotiated during COVID, it was just a dog's breakfast until Valandy's came in once again. Now, these are jobs that essentially you expect not your chairman to do, you expect your CEO to go out and do. Now, I've spoken to Valandy's about that. He said nothing critical of Abdo. He spoke about how much hard work he'd done to get basically in place for Valandy's to come in and fix it. I think that's Valandy's being polite.
Yeah.
Because I think if the deal was done, the way it would normally work is that Abdo would go into the ARL commission, of which Valandy's is chairman, and present them the deal. Okay, this is what we've agreed upon, and wait for their sign-off. But he couldn't get that done.
Do you think PVL will be embarrassed by this, being in the paper?
I don't think he'd be embarrassed. I think he'd be really pissed off, to be honest.
Right.
I'd like to see the next board meeting when he's there. It's going to be an interesting one because I don't think he'd be appreciative of it.
Yeah.
Because it is embarrassing that
it's made the papers, right?
Well, well, even the fact that he's the CEO of a national sport and he's going what I would think is a lesser job, to be honest. So I think that probably is an indication. Even the fact that he's entertained and admitted to having to agreeing to the the fact that he's admitted to having the discussions with them. I would suggest that he's probably the end is probably closer than we think.
He realises he's on.
Yeah, look, I'm not really savvy with all the ins and outs of what happens in there as much as I used to be, but I'm not surprised. Firstly, that this has happened, But I'm surprised at the fact that he's going to go and look at a job that's probably not the job he's already got.
Yeah, good
but
point.
I think that's an indication of how the mood is inside the ivory towers of the NRL at the
Well,
moment.
they've done very well to cover it up to date. So watch this space. So that's it for us today, Kenty. Tomorrow is Ask Kenty, Wednesday, obviously. So leave your comments below. Kenty, I just want to ask you before we go, what do you think on this direction by South Sydney for people not to run on with when Johnson scores? Surely we got to run on, don't we?
Well, look, yeah, I tend to think they're booing Santa Claus, aren't they? So they really are. Like, honestly, look, it is Ken Irvine finished playing in the late 70s. So it's over 50 years or nearly 50 years since this record was set. It's not like it's going to happen every week. The fact that they're threatening people with it, you can get fined $5,500 for running on the field. That's one thing that shits me. You can put that on the list.
Yeah.
I just think that's poor management.
It's a big list.
That's just poor management. Okay. Yep. Look, the fact that they ran on, I think it was
Tony Lockett.
Lockett back in the 90s or early 2000s, but he did it, and then
Buddy Franklin
recently when he set the AFL record. Look, it's a one-off. Clearly, the NRL's trying to copy that. Look, but I tell you what, South should just let it take its natural course.
I think maybe that's just dotting their I's and crossing their T's. I tell you what, kids, run on the field. If anyone asks you, tell them Kenty told you to be okay. Until tomorrow, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.